What's up YouTube, Capital G here talking Shining Victories, and there are 4 more Amorphage cards to talk about. I'm guessing we're wrapping up the support as far as what's going to be released in Shining Victories. I think maybe they may get like another spell or so, but I mean, we know about the Ritual, we know about some of the monsters already, the big boss monster with the built-in Macro Cosmos. Now we've got a trap for this archetype, so let's talk about the next 4 cards. So first up is Amorphage Gaster. That's nope, I'm gonna close this one out. That's this guy right here. It is an Earth Dragon. I mean, they're pretty much like all dragons. Pendulum scale 5, level 2, 0 attack, 1800 defense. The pendulum effect says, like all of them, each one of your standby phases destroy this card unless you contribute a monster. It's not optional, by the way. Effect number 1 for the pendulum scale, like the real effect. While you control an Amorphage monster, neither player can activate monster effects except Amorphage monster effects. Man, these Amorphage pendulum effects are like getting out of control, man. The boss monster is already like a Macro Cosmos, and this guy is essentially Majestys Fiend, which is a bitch of a card to deal with, man. Like, it seems like all of their pendulum effects are so freaking good. Granted, I know each turn you have to give up a monster or blow them up, but we already know that they got a card that lets you draw every time you tribute monsters, you know what I mean? Like, anytime you tribute for these guys, you end up drawing cards anyway, so it's not even that big of a deal. And assuming that you tribute pendulum monsters, you're probably just going to pendulum summon them back anyways. The monster effect on field says, if this card was pendulum summoned or flip face up, neither player can special summon monsters from the extra deck except Amorphage monsters. Fair enough. Okay, then there's Amorphage Lux, and that is this one right here, the red dragon. It says, well, the pendulum, it's a pendulum scale 5, level 2, 1350, and the pendulum effect is, once again, you know, if you don't, you got to tribute a monster or whatever. The real pendulum effect is, while you control an Amorphage monster, neither player can activate spell effects while an Amorphage, except Amorphage spell effects. Now, see, I'm not sure how this is worded. I don't know if this is like worded for Japan. Like, I don't know if this means that you can't activate a spell card, because activating a spell effect to me seems like you're gonna activate something that's already face up. I'm gonna assume, because I've never, that's not how they really that's not how they really put things into TCG. I'm gonna assume you can't activate spell cards. You know what I mean? And if you can't activate spell cards, then that's just insane. That means that you can't even wavering eyes these motherfuckers. You know, if you can't, and considering activating a pendulum scale counts as activating a spell, that would mean that if this card was in the pendulum scale and you had an Amorphage monster on field, your opponent would not be able to play their own pendulums. This would be an anti-spell fragrance, like, against another pendulum deck. They wouldn't be able to play their pendulum cards. But again, it could be just spell effects, which would be like, I guess if you played Infernity Launcher and you wanted to use the effect to, you know, destroy itself to special summon some Infernities, like, you wouldn't be able to use that. But I'm going to just assume that it's like activate spell cards, because you don't really see spell effects put on many TCG cards. And then the what's it called, the monster effect is identical to this one. If it's pendulum summoned or flip face up, neither player can special summon monsters from the extra deck except for Amorphages. So if you play an Exceed or Fusion or a synchro based deck, like rest in fucking pepperonis, because you're just not going to be able to get your boss monsters out. The last one is Amorphage Priest. Earth Pendulum Dragon, pendulum scale 3, level 4, 0 attack, 1950 defense, and this one is identical to the other ones. This one just says that neither player can activate trap effects except for Amorphage trap cards. I don't think this one will be as good, because outside of like counter traps like Solemn Strike and Solemn Warning, I mean, most decks, like a lot of pendulum decks, don't play a lot of trap cards, so I'm really not sure if this one's going to see as much play. Well, I mean, it's a level 4, and it's a weird thing right now. This deck can only, from what I've seen, it can only pendulum summon level 4s, which is kind of weird. So I guess you might have to play like one copy of it. And then the monster effect is the same as the other ones. Let's look at the continuous trap. Amorphage Lysis, which is this one right here. It shows basically the monsters being corrupted by what's it called? The dragon magic that Vector Pendulum uses. And it's a continuous trap. It says you can only use the 2 effect of Amorphage Lysis once per turn. The 2 effect is like insane, by the way, too. Effect number 1, all monsters except Amorphage monsters lose 100 attack and defense for each Amorphage card on the field. Okay, that's fine, because I mean, it's gonna count this card, and hopefully you have a couple of monsters that'll be 300, and then if you have pendulum scales, it's like 500. And then effect number 2, if a card or cards in your pendulum zone is destroyed, or I guess zones, you can place 1 Amorphage pendulum monster from your deck in your pendulum zone. So this means that if you have 2 cards in your opponent's or in your zones, and your opponent wants to be cheeky and they try and use Wavering Eyes, you can just flip this over, you can chain this to Wavering Eyes, and you can instantly replace those pendulum cards with 2 new pendulums, and then maybe be able to pendulum summon the ones that just got destroyed back straight to the field. Or I guess if you have like Luster Pendulum, you could like chain 2 Luster Pendulum effect, you could search and get another one in your pendulum scale. This also means that that whole self-destruction effect that they have, it's not even really that big of a deal, because if they blow themselves up, then you could just activate this and just replace them instantly. So you should always, with this card, you should always be able to keep scales. Now the weird thing is, I actually looked up the Amorphages, and they're all on Wiki already. The weird thing is, they only have pendulum scales of 5 and 3. So like if you look at their levels, we know the boss monster is 8, and they've got a 6 and some 2s in there, so the only thing they can actually pendulum summon is level 4, which is about half of the monsters. But what the deck needs, because these 2 activate when they're pendulum summoned, which is, it's like, how do you expect me to pendulum summon if I can only pendulum summon level 4? They need either a really low scale or they need a really high scale. They need like a 9 or a 1 right now. I would say definitely a 1 would be really, really good. Like, it doesn't have to have a monster effect. They just need a 1 scale, something like searchable. And the deck would definitely be good, because right now I'm looking at the scales and I'm just like, how the fuck are you supposed to pendulum summon like half of these monsters if they're level 2 and 6 and whatnot, and you can only pendulum summon 4? So I'm not quite sure. Maybe they're gonna have a spell to fix that, or maybe they're going to get like a scale 1 or something, or Konami is gonna be like, oh shit, we only made it so you can pendulum half of the monsters or something like that. But anyways, they look very powerful because of their pendulum effects, and because now that monster or the pendulum scale destruction is not really looking so bad. So let me know what you guys think. Thank you for watching as always.